What's up, guys? I'm Mendo, Team Liquid Mendo, aka Lucas, my real name, which absolutely no one, not even my dad, calls me by. But I'm a former pro player for Overwatch and Apex, and now with Team Liquid, I'm a streamer and content creator. I want to do a video for you guys talking about my favorite tasks. I get asked all the time which tasks I use, if I have a playlist, or just my general thoughts on aim trainers, because I'm a person who uses aimlab very frequently, but I don't necessarily go for high scores or try to push the tasks to the limits. I tend to use my tasks as a sandbox to create sub-scenarios for myself to practice specific things that I think translates really well to Valorant or any other games you might be playing. All right, so I'm gonna jump right into which tasks and why. All you have to do is you go and click on playlist. You can click the download button on my playlist, which will be called Mendo Training, and you can download it and use it yourself. Very simple. So now that you have the playlist downloaded from the Steam Workshop, all you gotta do is go home, click playlists, and it'll appear in your saved playlist up here. And I'm gonna walk through each task one by one and different ways I use them. And it's gonna be a couple of restarts, but I wanna show you exactly what I do and why I do it when I practice these specific things. So first up, it's gonna be multi-shot. I just want to show you why it's more versatile than grid shot, and that's because the longer a ball has been appeared, the smaller it gets, and it gets very, very small. The cap on how many balls are out isn't as set of an obvious number as grid shot is. So what I use this for, if I don't do the normal, like click everything as fast as I can, what I like doing is waiting for two to come out and then go for 1-2 taps. Because when you're playing Valorant, you're not going to find scenarios where you're just finding 20 people in front of you and you want to click on all of them at once. You're going to find scenarios, though, where you might be limited on ammo and there's 2 or 3 people peeking you, and you want to work on specific taps. And I try to keep the distances to distances I'm uncomfortable at, because if I'm in a game and there's 2 people right next to each other like that, I'll hit the shot. I'm very confident that these shorter range ones I'll hit, but the longer ones are the tough ones. What you also want to consider is the speed of your flick, right? Because sometimes you can flick like this pretty easily, different speeds. I'm very bad at slower speeds because I've just never practiced it, but you might be a little worse at faster ones. So try to visualize what you want to practice, what you want to get better at, and use multi-shot as a sandbox to create that for yourself. So even though I'm missing ones, I'm just going for 1-2 taps in ways that I feel uncomfortable. So the more vertical 1-2 taps, like up and down, I'm not as comfortable with left and right. Left and right, I'm very comfortable in. Up and down are harder, down and up. So I try to do 1-2 taps. And then if that's becoming a little bit easy, I try to find these patterns of how I want to do them when I'm playing this, because these are scenarios I actually might find myself in the game. Multi-shot allows you to create these scenarios for yourself where you are consciously putting your mind towards something to practice something specific. Be it taps, be it tempo, be it accuracy, whatever. You have different sizes. It's a very versatile task. That's why it's my favorite one. So the second task we're talking about is strafe shot. And I'm not using the meant to use weapon because it caps your fire rate. And I actually think that having the freedom to practice it however you want is better, because you can go really fast here if you want to do these quicker taps, or you can go slow. You can also use this task to kind of like position your crosshair where it moves over your crosshair instead of flicking to it. You can just very easily, you know, do upwards flicks or downwards flicks. I like doing this basically at the start of my day. I'll go in because it's familiar. Strafes are very common in Valorant. So I like going in and just kind of autopiloting doing this, getting more comfortable with the different types of flicks I'll do when I'm in a game. Longer range ones on headshots, going back and forth, following them, trying to get multiple headshots in a row. You know, I envision scenarios in the game that I'll actually find myself at. And then I set the fire speed. The fire rate cap is by myself. The practice of going at your own pace, if you want to visualize using a ghost or a sheriff to go for these different shots, you can do that all on your own, because you're going to feel more comfortable shooting those specific guns, because you're like, okay, I'm loading in. You know, maybe you want to use the gun that has the identical fire rate to the weapon you use if you don't want to rely on just yourself. It's a pretty simple task. It's very easy to autopilot and just do that. So what I try to focus on is just maintaining different fire rates, and I visualize which gun I'm using in my head when I'm shooting. The third task is circle track. This one's good because it just helps you practice tracking and also lets you flick onto targets. I like this one because it helps you with mouse control and just overall control of your arm, your mouse, everything, right? This one is pretty straightforward. This one I basically play, and what I focus on is, it's hard to show, but where my mouse is on my mouse pad, I'm trying to see, do I need to reset my mouse to the middle of my mouse pad? Because when I break the target, I don't know if it's behind me and I don't know which direction it's moving in. So if I'm all the way on the right side of my mouse pad, when I do my flick, or the direction I'm looking at to find the ball might be different depending on where I am on my mouse pad. That's why I use this. because it's pretty straightforward, and I'm trying to think of not running out of mousepad space because I'm a low sense player. You might just be a high sense Chad and might be laughing at me, but I love low sense, and I've played almost the same sense for years. I just make small changes game to game, and it's crucial for me not to run out of mousepad space. Also run out of mousepad space because there's scenarios that you'll generally never find in an actual game where you're just standing still tracking for a million years. But being better at doing it in AimLab, if I'm maximizing my mousepad space in a tracking scenario in AimLab, means that I'll never run out of actual mousepad space in the game. I'll always make sure I recenter when I can. And if I'm getting good at doing it in AimLab, it means I'll have no problems doing it in a game, because there's not many games where you're gonna have to do that much tracking. So that's why I use it. All right, so the next one is pretty straightforward one as well. It's Valorant Ascent Microflex right here. One of my favorite ones too. It gives you an actual scenario because you will find yourself in this position in Valorant. It might look like the balls are close to the ground, but where you put your crosshair would still be very similar if they're running out of a main. Because if you're not on the flat ground compared to them, headshot level isn't always just going to be left and right like this. It's going to be up and down when you're finding yourself in different verticality in terms of different positions on the map. So the way I use this one, I like doing it for warm-up. I like doing it to familiarize myself with the sights. If I'm going for high score, I'm trying to go as fast as I possibly can. But I typically don't, because when I'm clicking that fast, there's no gun in Valorant that I'm actually going to click that fast with. If I have a Vandal, I'm spraying, maybe bursting. If I have a Ghost, I'm tapping at a speed where I'm still accurate because it's really long range and the inaccuracy is pretty bad. So try to do the same thing here where, oh, maybe you're using a Sheriff. This is the tempo I shoot at with my Sheriff. And I try to maintain these tempos for the different weapons, because even if you shoot a Ghost, you know, you shoot it 3 times, the bullets are already just spreading after the first 2. At longer ranges, exactly like this, which is why this is so perfect. You want to make sure that when you have a shot on a head and a moving target, you want to make sure you hit that shot. So this is how you can use this task as well without going for a high score. You can do it to try to familiarize yourself with what would you do in this situation. So the 5th and last task I want to talk about is timing shot. I'm sure just watching the preview here, you can already understand kind of like what relevancy this has to Valorant and what you do. But you can see I'm locked, moving only up and down with my crosshair, and I'm supposed to see the trajectories of these bullets, and I'm supposed to click on them when they come through my crosshair. Even if you have good crosshair placement, if you aren't very good at this, then you won't hit your shots even with good crosshair placement when you're holding an angle. And the perfect thing too is that when you're playing Valorant, if you're actually trying to practice this, what ping you're at and what ping the opponents are on makes a big difference for actually practicing it. You want to make sure that you can hit the shots you're supposed to hit without bringing those outside things that you can't control into the picture. What I do is I try to visualize where to put my crosshair and try not to move it until they're very close, where you could probably like move last minute to where they're going to simulate a vertical flick. I like to pre-place my crosshair where I think they're going by the trajectory, and then trying to hit the crosshair placement. You're gonna have to counter strafe, you're gonna do a bunch of other stuff in Valorant, but you want to make sure that you have the core aiming part down before you do anything else. And this is perfect for that. Basically, before almost every single stream, I load up AimLab as not only a warm-up, but also for practice. For me, when I'm warming up and I want to make sure I'm on point and consistent with my aim, I make sure that my posture is consistent with how it always is when I play this game. For me, my aim is the most consistent when my environment is the most consistent. And that doesn't mean that I'm in the same room. That means that the desk level and chair height I'm at, it's where I'm comfortable with. I'm sitting up the way I'm comfortable and used to. And I run through multi-shot. I run through the entire playlist almost every time. Sometimes I just go through multi-shot over and over because sometimes I just really want to be able to make sure that my speed is on point. And sometimes I really want to make sure that my flicks are on point. I'm going 1-2 or 1-2-3. So I sit up, I run the playlist every single morning just to make sure that okay, I'm good to go. I'm good to queue up for a ranked game. So what I'll typically do is I do AimLab, Deathmatch, Ranked. Basically the same thing every morning. All right, so I want to show you guys my settings. I play 1440, 1080, 4:3 stretched in Valorant. But when you do that in Valorant, your field of view does not change. The stretch affects kind of like how your mouse input feels on that specific engine, kind of like the UI and some other stuff, but your field of view is completely the same as it would be on 16:9. So that's why I use AimLab at 1920, 1080, because I don't need the 4:3 for this tool or game to feel just absolutely amazing when it comes to mouse inputs, where Valorant I feel needs that little boost to keep my FPS consistent. But that's why I'm running AimLab at 1920, 1080. It's exactly the same field of view. It doesn't change the feel of your sensitivity at all. The sense is the exact same, 4:3, 269 on AimLab. So I run max frame rate based on my refresh rate, which is 360. And if you don't have 360, you know, you can run it whatever because AimLab just runs so smooth. Other than that, just like in any game I play, I have everything as low quality as possible with post-processing, muzzle flash, stuff like that. I have my skin visible because it just looks neat. Otherwise, you know, I tend to just have the bare bones so I can focus at the task at hand, which is clicking balls. My controls, pretty much, not exactly. For me, it doesn't exactly mimic my Valorant settings. What I went with is I put the settings for AimLab that closely mirrors like the feeling of Valorant as close as possible. So what I go for is when I'm going from AimLab in the morning on my warm-up to deathmatch, I want it to feel as natural as possible to make that transition. So that's why I'm running these settings specifically, where I'm running 115 field of view instead of 103, which I think generally would be the default. There's no other real settings to talk about specifically for that, but I suggest if you want to go mathematics for your sensitivity and everything be the same, try it. If it doesn't feel right for you, try to just go off of feel. And a good way to do that is by just putting your elbow down on your mouse pad and kind of see what mouse distance do I need to do a 360. And if you do a 360 and it's the exact same, but it feels off, then still try changing it. Your centimeter per 360 sensitivity will be different. But if the feeling feels right, the confidence will matter more than the mathematical accuracy. I can promise you that. For my crosshair, I think I went with the most absolute basic crosshair I could possibly find because I use it in Valorant too. I change my Valorant crosshair all the time because chat makes requests of colors and sizes and stuff like that. But the crosshair I'm using, which is exactly this right here, is kind of just my go-to basic crosshair when I'm not sure what to use in Valorant. And since I want AimLab to be my consistent platform where I can practice everything as consistently as possible, I have my go-to crosshair instead of the one I'm actively using, changing it. So that way I know, you know, if I'm playing Valorant and I don't know what crosshair to use, I don't like the small gap one, I just go for the one that mimics my AimLab crosshair, which is these exact settings. And then something I actually want to talk about when it comes to sensitivity is I don't believe in finding a perfect sensitivity. I think you can take time and pick a sensitivity and make it your perfect sense instead. There's no perfect number out there for you. You're not gonna just be able to do like, wow, this is my sense. It was made for me. You should take a sensitivity and make it yourself. And when you've consistently been able to perform on that sense and you feel comfortable with it, that's when you should make changes to fine tune it instead of just changing sense all the time. When you're using AimLab, you're practicing specifically your core aim. And there's a lot of different tools for you to change that, as in right hand, left hand, weapon perspective, cooldown countdown if you want to just help that out, or whatever changes you want to make. You should make these changes. Keep in mind that you are using a tool that is meant to help you practice, so customize it in any way that will help you achieve that practice. And that also doesn't mean load up a playlist and just click buttons, unless that's what you're trying to practice, of course. But when you're practicing something, try to load up a task with a specific scenario in mind. Like you're specifically, consciously thinking about practicing a specific skill set one at a time. Don't just launch up AimLab and expect to hit 200k in grid shot by just clicking the balls passively. You can. There are people that are going to be able to just load it up and just click stuff and get faster, but conscious practice always beats passive practice. Consistency is key. So that's why you want to make sure you focus on consistency and make sure your average aim level is as high as you can possibly get it. Everyone has good days, everyone has bad days, but your average should always be as high as possible, and that should be your focus. When I was talking about consistency as well, consistency, you know, it's a lot of different things. And for me, consistency is consistently using the same mouse grips for the different areas of aim that I use. So when I'm tracking, my mouse grip is consistently the same when I'm tracking, but it's not the same as when I'm flicking. So different areas of maps, different ranges, different scenarios, I have different mouse grips, but I know exactly what I'm doing, which mouse grip. So that means that I can maximize my efficiency and how good I am at tracking with my specific grip of my mouse. It might seem like a lot of information, but if you're just tracking, you're doing strafe shot, you're doing whatever, and how you're holding your mouse just feels uncomfortable, just try to swap it up. Don't be worried about me saying consistency is key, about changing your mouse grip or making changes to how you play. You can have 10 different grips or 10 different postures, however you want to do it. Everyone is different. But as long as you don't just randomly change shit every day, you're gonna get better. And the best way to do that is by making changes when you have gotten to a certain level, like, okay, I'm comfortable, I'm good, I feel like I could do better at this area if I change something up. That's the perfect time to do it. Or be like Tenzin and just change your actual mouse every day or every other day, or and still hit every shot. But there's not going to be that many of those people in watching these videos. So, all right, so this is the end of the video. That's basically like my entire thought process on how to use AimLab to improve in specific areas to make yourself a better player in Valorant. You know, you watch someone else talk about AimLab, they're gonna have different info to give you, different tips, different focuses on how to use AimLab itself, where if you want to use it like I do, I have everything now. You have the playlist available to you to download on the workshop. You absolutely have my skin to instantly boost your performance by 10%. And if you haven't tried AimLab yet, you also have my code MENDO. You can check me out on socials and make sure you use your Twitch Prime on, ideally, you know, me, but just go to your favorite sponsored AimLab creator and show some support in their channels. Huge thank you to AimLab for inviting me to do this as well. It was a ton of fun, and I hope you guys learned something. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope you guys tune back in for my other videos and any other videos from any other content creators on this channel. Peace.